he is 100% worth it.
He takes it to another level. Oh my God, I just fell in love with it.
Thanks so much, Jay.
Blew my mind. And it worked. I wanted to buy my thing.
Jay is, I would say, the Yoda of sales calls, man.
Just talking to Jay, he was so good at just taking what it is, seeing the opportunity and the value and the real reason we are making it.
Talk to Jay because he got it. He can definitely help you out.
Talk to Jay. You're going to get a lot. You're going to gain a lot.
I would absolutely recommend him for any position that you have.
Jay's definitely the guy.
Give him the chance, give him the opportunity. You won't regret it.
He's good at what he does, so I highly recommend him, and I would book him before he is fully booked out.
What is up, Sales Ninjas? Welcome back to another powerhouse episode of the Sales Ninja Show podcast. Today, we've got a special guest who knows how to turn rejection into revenue and branding into big business. He started as a top-paid competitive paintball athlete. What? But that was just the beginning. Through mentorship, self-education, relentless hustle, he transformed his life, scaling businesses to 8 figures, generating $1 million in a single day and creating offers that brought in $2.1 million in just 3 days with 0 ad spend. He's partnered with icons like Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, Jordan Belfort, and Jake Paul, and so many more. And he's also the host of Business Rockstars, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs succeed. If you're looking to scale, sell, or even exit your business, this episode is about to change the game for you. Let's dive in and welcome Mark Lack. What is up, Mark? How you doing, bro?
Good, dude. Good to be on here.
Good to have you. Thank you for your time, man.
Yeah.
The accomplishments, the achievements, the accolades, the revenue generated, they all seem mind-blowing and somewhat unattainable. Let's start from the very beginning. So were you selling candy at your elementary school and charging 10 times more? Where did it all start?
No, actually, I just didn't really like school. And, you know, most places, you know, are going to require you to get a degree. So if you want to make money, and this was before like the internet, right? I'm turning 35 next month. So now it's like common. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about, like making money on the internet, crypto, you know, like there's just so many different ways that you can just like get rich at a young age and have an asymmetrical return on investing. You can leverage AI and spin up your own software, websites, funnels, copy. So when I was young, well, now I'm feeling old, right? I'm married and have a kid. But when I was young, you had to go and get a degree and get a job. At least that's what everybody told you. At least the good news is, I think now that starts to sound a little bit played out. Like that's not the path I think a lot of kids believe in. They don't have to go to school and get a degree to get a job. But that was what my parents thought. Oh, you got to get a degree, you got to get a job. So I went to school. I immediately could tell that most of the information I was being taught in high school and college was just not the information that I was going to need moving forward. Like I've never once needed to know what H over I divided by K times X equals. Like what is that even? What the hell? And then like so many other examples, but it makes the point nonetheless. Like I could just tell I'm never going to need this information ever. And yet I'm not only am I paying money, a lot of money, most people go into debt to get this worthless education diploma, but I'm also giving you my time, which is the most finite thing we have. And so I'm giving you my money and my time to learn worthless information. So that's kind of where it all started for me. It wasn't selling lemonade and doing lemonade stands as a kid. I wasn't an entrepreneur as a kid. Like some people are like, I was an entrepreneur when I was 8. That wasn't me. What I was the guy who didn't do well in school. And then I played professional paintball, and I was already making six figures in high school and college from playing professional paintball. So I was already making more money than my teachers. I was making that much money only on the weekends, not even actually full time, just literally on the weekends. And so I had this like mindset of, I'm already making more money than all the kids and the teachers. And most people would, especially back then, love to make six figures. I was doing it on the weekends, just playing paintball. And so I was like, I want to get rich. I want to, and to the point where I was like, I'm even going to quit paintball because paintball I was one of the top in the world, and that was it. It was six figures, not even like mid or high six figures, like low six figures. And so because I couldn't make millions, and everybody thought, oh, Marcus, what happens if somebody's getting C's and D's and F's? You're labeled stupid. You're not somebody that people think has a bright future. And so I was like, okay, I'm the best in the world at paintball. One of the best top 10 people in the whole world. Still to this day, I hold the #1 prize ever won in paintball history. I made $175,000 in one day.
What?
When I was 17 years old, I had to split it with the three of us. So it was me and two partners. So there was three of us that we had to split 175 grand. But still, I made that in one day when I was 17 years old. So I had this mindset of like, I can go and do anything I want. And I definitely don't want to go get a regular 9-to-5 job and follow the cookie cutter lifestyle of getting a job, having debt, paying off a mortgage, like just the basic ass life. So I was like, I want to go and have choices. I want to have freedom. I want to have options. I want to be able to have an amazing life. I want to have amazing education. I want to have amazing health and not be limited to money. And I can get into a whole thing around money and how like the Federal Reserve can just print it, and our government's in debt, and how the fact that we all have to slave away our entire life and give up our only finite thing, which is time, to go make money, which the government can literally print out of thin air and devalue our hard-earned savings. I can get into that, which is why I'm a big Bitcoin investor and advocate.
Yes.
And spreading the message of love around how Bitcoin can save you and your family and your savings from poverty, because the government can just, double the money supply, and there goes your savings account. And there goes your salary and everything else, because everything costs more, and your income, your salary is not going to go up in the same rate of which they'll print, which means you're always slowly going more and more poor. And so, so get into that, but I just knew something was always off with the system. Like this, and it starts with the education system, and then it goes into the money system, and they teach us to go and be slaves in the system to make money that they can print. It's like, wait a minute, I have to go into debt with this fake monopoly money to pay for an education that's actually outdated, that's never going to help me achieve financial freedom. And then I just have to go and work for a company to make money that's worthless because the government can just print it whenever they want. And they did it. They showed us during 2020 to 2023, they expanded the money supply by 40%. And so that means that like the money you had in your bank account is worth 40% less, but you still saw the same dollar amount. But if you wanted to go and buy the same house that you were saving for, like, not all of my friends are entrepreneurs. Some of my friends are still my buddies from college and high school, and they have 9-to-5 jobs. And I call that like a normal person. They're not like an entrepreneur who's making millions of dollars and just has like a different lifestyle, statistically speaking. And so some of my friends who have 9-to-5 jobs, they're saving their whole life, right? Like I've seen them since they graduated college. I've seen them save. I've seen them save money for 10 to 15 years, saving money. And they were like, I really want to go buy this house for $700-800 grand. And I live in California, so real estate's a little bit more expensive than some other places. So $700 or $800 grand is not that good of a house, right? Like in California.
Yeah.
And that was the house. They're like, I'm gonna go get a $700,000-800,000 starter home, right? Your starter home. That house is now $1.4 million. And so they're like, dude, I've been saving for 10 to 15 years for that house, and now the house is doubled. My savings didn't double, my salary didn't double, but the house doubled. And so this is the lie that we're all told, is work hard for money and then save it, right? We're all told that. Go work, get a job, make money, and then what are you supposed to do when you get the money, Jay? Save it.
Yeah, exactly right.
But saving it is the worst thing you could do, because it's literally designed to go down in purchasing power, meaning it's a melting ice cube, but we still see the same dollar sign. I still have $100,000 in savings, but the thing I want to go and save for, the house, the car, the vacation, that all costs more. And so that's your savings going down. The dollar gets worse. So it's actually the worst savings technology ever. And then we can get into gold, silver, stocks, Bitcoin, real estate, etc. I can go through all of them and tell you why Bitcoin's the best. But I always knew there was just something wrong with the system. And so even as a kid, my parents knew I was rebellious against authority, teachers, whatever. And I just knew, I was like, but that's because I feel like I'm being taught to follow this cookie cutter system, and it's wrong. This is not the way that people, like all of us, I can't prescribe to everybody, but they're prescribing everybody has to go through this system. And I could tell that the system wasn't for me specifically. I'm referring to me. And so I started to do self-education. I have a lot of books behind me. I've read a ton of books. So it wasn't like I was like, oh, I hate school, I'm going to go do drugs. No, I was like, I like the idea of learning.
Yes,
I want to become successful. I want to become more confident, well-spoken, articulate. I want to grow and develop. But the formal education system, and no disrespect to teachers out there, right? Teachers are amazing. Teachers help so many people. And my experience was most of my teachers didn't have the physical body that I wanted. They were not in shape. Most of them didn't have the our ability to articulate confidently. It was like, sit down, you're not able to, I'm the teacher, I'm the boss. And I was like, whoa, that's not the best way to communicate. You know, you're treating me like I'm this low-level child. You're not treating me with respect. And I'm the one paying you. Ironically enough, I'm actually your boss. I'm actually your boss. I'm your customer. Because if all of us left and hated you, you would have no job. And so I just immediately had this like turn off energy of like most teachers. I did have a couple amazing ones, but it was like, unfortunately, it was a rare scenario to have a great teacher. And then the problem is, after a certain amount of months, you immediately have a new teacher and then a new teacher. And so by the time that teacher finally started to understand your learning style, your behavior, etc., you had to jump to a new teacher. And so the system is just broken. I didn't like the system. I did self-education. I did pass. It took me, I had to go to summer school, winter school, fucking, what are they called? Tutors, where they help you. Like, I had to do all of that because I had to do anything I could just to pass. And it still took me 4.5 years to graduate college. I had to go do 2 years at a junior college because I wasn't good enough to get into a regular college. Then I finally got into Cal State Fullerton Business and Marketing School. That took me 2.5 years to graduate. So all my friends were already out of college. They were like, haha, you're a loser. Like, you know, like guys, like just being like grab ass. And they're like, haha, I got a job. I'm making money. You're still stuck in college. Little did they know where we would be shortly after. Then I graduated, immediately started my own company. So it was pointless for me to go to school because I just started my own company. I didn't have to sit down and go, please, Jay, hire me. Here's my diploma, which means nothing. Please hire me. Instead, I just started my own company, and, you know, I can get through that. But I got into teaching personal development like Tony Robbins, because I could tell that was like something really going to change my life. Like, whoa, this guy speaks to me. I'm developing myself. Then I started teaching sales and marketing because I studied so much of that. And everything I did was like, if you don't get results, you get your money back. And so I immediately had this like, you know, because who am I to be offering this advice? So I was like, look, if I don't help you, it's for free. But the other guy's not saying that because he's got the credentials and the qualifications. It's your fault if you don't take action, right? Which is kind of like where I'm at now in my life, is I'm like, look, I'm successful enough now that I'm not going to work with you unless I really believe that we can support each other. I don't even do that much consulting anymore, honestly. It has to really make sense. But again, right, like, who am I to be teaching right out of college? So I was extremely like, if you don't get results, it's free. And long story short, that snowballed into, wait a minute, being a consultant and a coach, I only can sell my time, and I don't want to be a high paid person who's stuck selling their time. So then I realized, okay, the internet was really taking off, and social media. And I was like, I can actually clone myself on camera, kind of like we're doing via podcast, where this isn't going to just be a one-on-one coaching session with you and me. This is going to be reaching hundreds, maybe thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, maybe even millions. And that's the point, is like, if I posted enough content, if I did enough interviews, I could actually create digital courses. I could sell the course for cheaper than my consulting, but I could help more people. And so then I started to get into courses. started to do online advertising, affiliate partnerships. And then because I started to do such a good job of that, I had celebrities being introduced to me being like, I would like to blow up, not my brand, they have a big brand, but I'd like to sell online education or a book or a masterclass, because masterclass, now I'm really catching up to like modern day, the last 5 years. Masterclass, like celebrities doing masterclasses and thought leaders and experts and doctors and Pulitzer Prize winners and billionaires all doing masterclasses because it's like the trendy thing to do. Rather than maybe also writing a book or just writing a book, now you do a masterclass. And so then we got, I have a publishing company and we started publishing celebrities. And so we published almost 24 celebrities and thought leaders and experts and influencers. And I exited my online education business in 2023 to a private equity group. So the selling of the courses, that business, I grew that for 10 years. And then I sold it to a private equity firm in 2023. I took all the money I got from the exit and I put it all on Bitcoin at $25,000. It went up to 109,000. So I more than 4x'd that. Right now, Bitcoin's at 90 grand. You can see on my block clock right here. So I'm still up almost 375% on the money I took from my exit. So it's really like I sold my company for, 12 times, because I sold it for 3 times, 3.3 times EBITDA, but now it's gone up 4x. So it's like I sold my company for like 12x, which is awesome. And now my whole mindset is like, I got to grow a company to sell it. And so I've got my software company, Hero Pixel. We do data enrichment and provide 400 data points on every person coming through your business. Whether you have just a name and an email, we can give you up to 400 data points. And so now I've evolved from just doing education, which I'll always have education on my heart because education changed my life. Ironically, from my backstory of the guy who hated education or the formal education to now doing education for like the rest of my life in some capacity. I'll always be teaching because it's a passion of mine and it changed my life and it's given me financial freedom and time freedom. And now that I'm married and have a 3-year-old daughter, it's like time freedom means so much more to me. And then financial freedom, being able to not only have the time, because a homeless man has time, but I have the time and I have the choice to do anything I want. And so now I have both the things that I think everybody wants their version of: time freedom, to the ability to have the time to do what you want, when you want, how you want, but you also have to have the finances to be able to do what you want, when you want, how you want. And so you put those two things together, you can create your best reality of what life you want. And then the best thing is if you have enough, you've overfilled your cup so much, it's overflowing, that it can fill up other people's cups. I can retire my wife. She never has to work unless she wants to. I can spoil my friends and family with the best vacations and whatever, right? I can give you that thing that you've always wanted, but you just thought, it'd be too ridiculous to buy, or I could never afford it. I can buy it for you because I love you. And like, it's just such a great feeling to be that. And I always wanted to be that, like, Wizard of Oz or whatever the term would be, where I have a magic wand and I can go, I love you, Jay. Woohoo! And like, there's that vacation you always wanted. Who else?
Thanks for the keyboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like whatever it is, I could just be like, I love you. You're one of my best friends or family members. Witcha! Or like, I married my wife, and so her family now gets that as well. We're gonna fly private. Witcha! It's like whatever. And so it's just like, it's so cool. And
that'd be a fun brand to do with that idea, like,
yes,
or like they have a magic wand.
Yeah. It was like, back in the day, Oprah, she'd be like, you get a car and you get a car and you get a car.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess my long-winded story before I throw it back to you for some real questions is just, don't give up. The formal system, you don't have to listen to. Get over what people think about you. If your parents or your friends are thinking, oh, you got to do this, you shouldn't go out on your own, you shouldn't take that risk, you shouldn't invest in that risky Bitcoin, or like everybody told me, oh, you shouldn't invest in, you shouldn't put all the money from your investment or from selling my company. Because when I sold my company, I got millions of dollars and everybody was like, oh my God, you could retire. You could put it in a savings account and just make like 6 figures a year for the rest of your life. Like, I could have made multiple 6 figures a year, just passive income for the rest of my life if I just put it in a money market fund like a dummy. And so people were like, maybe you just do that. Like, you could just make like, 300 grand a year for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? And I was like, what do I give a shit about 300 grand a year? Like, that's not going to do anything. And so I was like, I'm going to put all of it on Bitcoin and I'm going to make it into hundreds of millions of dollars in the next 10 years, maybe 15 years. Doing nothing. I just put it in Bitcoin and Bitcoin's going to do what it does with volatility. It ultimately goes up. So I did that, and guess what? It went up 4x, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, you're a genius! You're so smart!" It's the same thing when I quit college. When I graduated college and I started my own company, everybody was like, You're crazy. You should go and get a job. You're so good and skilled. You could make a lot of money as a sales guy or as a commission-based marketer or something. And I was like, nah, I'm going to start my own company. And sure, I failed. I didn't just like, it's not like, oh, everything I touch does well. No, I failed a lot. We can go through the list of failures. But yeah, the lesson is usually when you do the opposite of what people tell you, you're going to do well, because it takes a while for group consensus to really reflect the choice that a successful person will make before they become successful. Meaning before you become, now everything I do, people are like, Mark's saying it, maybe we should listen. Cause now I've got that sort of momentum, and I'm a little bit old enough now, turning 35 next month. And now that I have, an 8-figure net worth, like now people are finally understanding, like, I should probably listen to this guy, because I saw him go from no money to 6 figures to 7 figures to multiple 7 figures to 8 figures to multiple 8 figures. I'm going to be at 9-figure net worth in my 30s. I think I should probably listen to this guy. You know what I mean? And then it's like, I'm going to be at multiple 9 figures, and then I'll be a billionaire. And it's like, at what point would you have wished you listened sooner? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's just like, I guess the biggest lesson is just, most of the time, the people that love you are telling you what they think is right for you based on what they did for themselves. Like, they're not telling you what's right for you based on what you believe you're capable of. They're telling you what they hope you can do is to stay safe. Remember, nobody really wants you to do that much better than them. Right. And they say they do, but they don't really want you to do that much better than them, like so much better. They don't, like, if you have like an acting friend, your friend doesn't really want you to go on to be the next A-list celebrity if they get stuck behind. And if you have like friends and buddies, and you're always like, bro, someday we're gonna have the Lambo and we're gonna have that. Like, I actually have the Lambo now, and like, people, like, they're not that happy for you if they didn't get the Lambo too. And so just remember, like, most people, they don't really want you to be that successful, that much better than them in all areas: health, wealth, fitness, money, you name it. Most people, even though they love you, they can't relate to you. That's the other thing, is you almost become unrelatable. And then it just becomes this, I'm disconnected from people. I actually have, and that's what it sucks, but it's like, you don't have less friends, although that's probably true. You just have different friends, because the conversation changes. Like, I want to talk openly about money with people, but my wife's always like, my wife's always like, you can't just do that. You can't just like talk about money like that. And I'm like, well, then I don't want to be friends with you. I don't want to talk to you. Like, we should be open and transparent about things that, like, talking. Guess what? I talk about money a lot, and I had no money, and now I have a lot of money, relatively speaking. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's billionaires who have way more, but there's not that many billionaires, right? So it's like, it's always relative. But I think when you become obsessed with something, you start to naturally find ways to just attract more of that thing. And I think the biggest problem is most people think about money all the time, but they're coming from a place of scarcity. Their mindset's been programmed to, even unfortunately, we've heard money's the root of all, and most people will say evil, because we've heard that so many times. But yeah, I could just keep going forever, Jay. You know this. So I'm going to throw the ball back to you. It's just like, man, it's
a monologue.
Go against the grain, be a contrarian. Don't wait for consensus. Like, oh, I'll do it when my mother, my brother, my father, and everybody and my friends all supports me. No, it's never going to happen. They'll support you after you become successful. When they were like, Jay, don't do it. Please don't do it, Jay. You're crazy. And then you do it. You become successful. Jay, I knew you could do it, Jay. I love you, Jay. I always supported you, Jay. I always had your back. And you're like, okay, that's just what it is, though. Every successful person who's obsessed, they have their own version of that, right? Never did everybody have their family, their significant other, their best friends, their community, their church cheering them on all together at the same time before they became successful. Never.
That's so true. I want to make a couple points, because I made some notes. When I went from banking to pastoring for 10 years, my parents were kind of like heartbroken, because I was kind of undoing their dream of me becoming a dentist, doctor, lawyer, right? And then that education. So I get it. I studied science in one of the top universities here in Canada, and I hated it because it's the dream that they wanted me to live. And I, like you, hated education, even though I almost skipped 2 grades because I knew how to beat the system. I always think of like, how do I work less and make more and be, some people call it lazy, but I call it smart. And you know what? It was really difficult because I was, reading these books and I was like you, I was like, I'm never going to use this. I know that. So I resonate 110% with everything you said. And it's very difficult for me right now with 3 kids who are in high school and middle school, because I know that, 90% or more of the stuff that they're learning, they're not going to use. Maybe work ethic, maybe group studies, maybe learn how to negotiate and communicate. That's good. But in terms of the actual material and the content, I mean, I don't use like 99% of the stuff, right?
And then now with AI, it's over. I have to actually think about what's my 3-year-old going to do when she's a working class adult? What is the world even going to look like when she's a working class adult? She's 3. I'm like, AI and robots are going to take so many jobs, and sure, they're going to create jobs, but like they're going to take a lot of the basic jobs that most people are like, oh, that'll never happen in my lifetime. You are about to find out the hard way then, And
the irony of it is, and to that point is like the schools are saying, anti-AI, don't use it. I'm like, no, teach them how to use it and leverage it. And then they're doing like these AI detectors on the papers. And then you got to now use a humanizer and all these different things. And people who even write really well.
That's what they always say, though.
Right?
Yeah, that's what they always say. Don't use a calculator. Don't use open notes. Don't use this. And it's like, but wait a minute. Is the company that hires me going to want me to utilize the company resources, whether that be team members, whether that be a calculator, a computer, AI? Yes. Yeah. So the school system just inherently, see, again, they teach you what's not in your best interest to prepare you for the real world, because they have no accountability. After you leave, there's no accountability. They don't get a negative review. They don't get sued. They don't get whatever. That person's just there to get their tenure, to get their long-term check when they've worked for 30 years. And I know some of them have good interests, but like if they really had good interests in mind, then they would be saying, look, we're going to do open note. We're going to do this, because life is not about what you remember. And school teaches you that it's only about what you can remember and regurgitate on the test. Life has very little to do with your ability to recall and remember something on a test. Because you could be like, hey, Jay, I'm going to just try to recall and remember everything. Well, I just sit here surrounded by a team of the smartest people, all with computers and AI. We're going to smoke you all day because you're trying to go off memory. And again, it just makes the point. The school system's already been broken 10, 20 years ago when I was in it. And it's astronomically such a worthless waste of time. But the problem is, unfortunately, statistically speaking, society as a whole, most people are middle class to lower class. And that's a combination of a reflection of both their background, education, ancestral, etc. Like it's a whole combination of all of that. And the problem is then you've got middle to lower class people being like, Jay, I never got to go to college, and I worked my whole life saving up so that I could put you through college. And then you're like, but mom and dad, college is a fucking waste for my generation. And it's like, but the parents are like, I don't care what you say, Jay. I didn't get the privilege to go to college. And I've been saving up my whole life to send you to college. You're going to college and you're going to get good grades, or else you're going to be shamed. And you're like,
yeah.
And so it's this perpetual cycle. So now you have somebody who really does love you and care about you and gave up so much to get you to college, only to send you into a fucking broken system that's actually not the best use of your time and their money. And it just creates this perpetual cycle of more poverty, more resentment, more shame. And now you have kids resenting their parents for forcing them to go to college. And it just becomes this whole wackadoodle, like just ripple effect. And so I'm glad that we're slowly getting out of that, because I know that there's a lot of just economic downstream effects from that. You have kids going into jobs they don't really want, becoming doctors when they didn't really want to, or dentists when they didn't really want to, or lawyers when they didn't really want to. And then they eventually quit, and then they carry that debt burden with them. And it just becomes higher divorce rates. There's just so many problems that I could go down, because I spend so much of my time now studying all this stuff, because I want to know like macro trends of like, where's the world heading? And then like, where do I put my money to go to work for me? Because that's at some point, the only way to survive this future coming up in the next 5 to 10 years. And then it's over. And when I say it's over, I just mean like, it will be unrecognizable in 10 to 20 years. the future at the rate of growth with exponential robots and AI coming into the play. Like, you cannot look back and be like, well, the last 20 years wasn't that disruptive. Probably the biggest thing that happened was like the internet and like mobile phones.
Right. Exactly.
Like, no. You can't. Like, in 20 years, it'll probably be illegal to drive a car by a human, because we'll be like, you could be drunk, you could be high, you could be tired, you could be angry, you could be methed out, you could be roid rage. Robots never make that mistake ever. And the tiny little fraction of a mistake they make is much less than the constant mistakes all the humans make. There will be less traffic, there will be less accidents, there will be less everything, and it'll be cheaper. And so, yeah, the point is, the disruption that's coming, I think truly the only way to survive is not to go have a 9-to-5 job of any kind. It'll be replaced or disrupted dramatically with AI, and your whole education will have to start over because AI will be incorporated, and you have to relearn a whole new way to incorporate with AI. Or if you have a job, if you have a company, so jobs, you're screwed. Companies, you're probably also screwed if you own a company. So you either have a job at a company or you own the company. And if you own the company, you're also screwed because inflation is going to get rampant. We're going to print trillions and tens of trillions of dollars. Cost of everything's going to go up. Government's going to have to keep printing more money to help feed the common middle class. Will disappear and become only poor people and rich people. There will be only poor people and rich people. Just like in all the movies, when it's the future, is there a middle class? Yeah. In all the futuristic movies, is there a middle class? Never. There's only the 1% rich and all the poor people. That's exactly the direction we're headed. That's exactly the reason why all the futuristic movies have seen that out, because it's inevitable. That's the future. AI takes all the jobs from the middle class people, and there's only poor people, and they live off of the government. They live off of government handouts, which becomes the exact opposite of what we want, which is we don't want big government. And it's what's happening. The government will have to get bigger to take care of the 99% of the poor people because there won't be a middle class. And that's slowly already happening. We're already starting to see that. The statistics are crazy. I have some wild stats I could share, but it's the middle class is disappearing before our eyes. And COVID ramped that up dramatically. But I believe in the next 20 years, there will be no middle class. And so
that's soon. Wow.
I think I believe in 20 years, there will be zero middle class. It'll just be poor people. And then there will be like versions of wealthy to like disgustingly wealthy. Like everybody up here will have like an 8-figure to billion-dollar net worth. And then down below is just pure poverty. There won't really be like an in-between. Which is why, yeah, I'm trying to get straight up to the 9-figure and 10-figure net worth, so that I can take everybody that I love with me up there, because it's like you're either going to be at the bottom and you're going to be poor, getting government universal basic income, UBI, STEM checks. Basically, it's the future of universal basic income. Everything in the world will be tokenized, so the government can just airdrop. Use that term loosely. Just airdrop you a token, a digital token, which will be like, let's be honest. Everything now is. I have a credit card, and so it's like that's already just digital money. So everything is digital money already.
Right.
It'll be trackable. It'll be programmable. It'll be smart money. So I can because it's tokenized, I can send Jay money from the government, and I can say Jay can't buy alcohol because he's had a problem in the past with alcohol. So so when you go to scan your phone, the money to your phone is attached to your biometric scan. And it's programmed to your phone. And it will know if you try to send the money to somebody and then they spend it, it'll know that money came from Jay. That money cannot be. And if that person gets caught, then they get in trouble. And so it'll be this whole thing. And then if they want you to get shots, if they want you to get anything, they want to force you to get vaccinated, you're not going to get your money this month, airdrop to your phone if you don't get the vaccination that we need. And so they'll be able to full lockdown. This is Yeah, because guess what? If you have to rely on the government for money to live, then you have to do what they tell you, or they just don't give it to you. And so they're gonna push down the lower class, and they do this through money printing. By printing more money, they're able to accelerate the disproportionate 2% inflation that Jerome Powell and the Fed has always tried to have, a 2% inflation rate. Because guess what? A 2% inflation rate, the average annual income goes up 3%. So 2% inflation, 3% income growth, you're always a little bit above the inflation rate. But now the true inflation rate is somewhere between 8% and 14%. So the average person's income only grows 3% on the low end, 5% on the high end. But the true inflation rate now, depending on what basket of goods, including real estate and other things that you put in there, is between 8 to 14%. And that's also a reflection of the monetary expansion rate. The government prints $1 trillion every 100 days, and that's coming down. That's going to keep coming down in the days. So it'll be $1 trillion every 60 days, $1 trillion every 30 days. And as they continue to do that, your salary is still going to be a 3 to 5% growth, but the inflation rate of all the things around you will be 14%, 16%, 18%. And so you're going to go broke faster, which is why at this current rate, the middle class will be gone in 20 years. And then you add on AI and robotics, done. Middle class, almost unrecognizable. Like it already, I saw a stat. It said you have to make $250,000 a year if you have 2 parents and 2 kids. To survive in California where I live. You have to make $250,000 to live a comfortable middle class life. You have to make $250,000 a year if you have 2 parents and 2 kids, family of 4, living in California where I live. I live in Orange County specifically, so that number might be a little tilted, but I think it was just all of California. $250,000 used to be a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Now it's a basic ass life for a family of 4 in California where I live. So point is, I spend like pretty much all my time studying this stuff now because learning about business, learning about sales, learning about marketing, it's only helpful so that you can make the fake monopoly fiat money that you're going to earn in this way that we all function, so that you can immediately convert it into something that's going to protect you and your family. I believe Bitcoin is that technology because nobody can take it, nobody can hack it, nobody can steal it, and it theoretically only goes up in the long term because it has a fixed supply. And so as the demand increases, there's no way to increase the supply. You can't do a stock split. You can't go make more real estate. You can't go extend the beach property land out like they do in Florida and other places in Dubai where they actually extend the beaches out to build more beach property. You can always build more property, even though they say, oh, but beachfront property. Yeah, beachfront property goes up dramatically because there's such a finite amount and rich people want it. And a lot of the times rich people just use it as a store of value because they don't want to leave their money in the bank because money goes down, real estate goes up. And so a lot of rich people just buy a bunch of real estate and use that as their bank account. So they put all their money in the real estate. So instead of leaving $1 billion in the bank, they go and buy 10 properties worth $500 million. And then that makes the price of all the other real estate go up because the way real estate typically works is if my neighbor's house sells for $3 million, my house is now worth $3 million, roughly as a ballpark because that's kind of the way real estate works in a nutshell. And so the problem is really rich people, they buy these expensive properties as a way to dump their cash, which then gives this false illusion that the house must be worth that much. But a rich person doesn't care because they're not buying it to live in it. They're just buying it to dump cash. So then it makes beachfront property get astronomically more expensive than all the other property. And because it's that much more scarce and it's not even used to live in, it's used as a savings account, making it that much more scarce to rich people because they'll pay whatever price they need to. And so there's a disproportionate amount of real estate rising. So bro, it's just crazy. Regular people are fucked. And once I understood, it's 99% of the world is regular, middle class to poor. Like just summarizing it all up, you're either in the 1% of like rich people, and then there goes higher than that, like the 0.01%, the 0.0001%. But like, let's just call it the 1%, which is like wealthy people who never really have to worry about money unless they totally mess up. And then 99% of people fall below that to middle versions of the middle class, all the way down to versions of poor. And so, dude, it's sad. That's why I like to spend most of my time talking about this stuff, because somebody could be on here, learn all about sales and go crush it and make a bunch of money and pay a bunch of money in taxes and then pay a bunch of money for their living expenses and have a little bit of money left over to save. And if they don't know if they don't know where to put that money, so they save it, that person's fucked. And so that's why I like to come on and be like, yo, as a guy who's made a bunch of money selling, as a guy who's made a bunch of money in marketing, and as a guy who's been blessed to have abundance and make tons of failures and learn from them and still be successful regardless, I'm telling you, I've now figured out this is the path to being extremely wealthy. You have to live below your means, take the money that's, theoretically after taxes and expenses. You have your savings, the money. So that's why you live poorly, save your money, and then dump your money into investments. Don't save it. Dump it into investments that are going to grow faster than the monetary expansion rate of 8 to 14%. Well, the S&P 500 statistically over 100 years has grown about 7 to 8%. So most people put their money in the S&P 500 because it grows 7, 8%, but that just barely keeps your nose above the water because that's the typical, they say 2%. It's bullshit. It's always been the SPY and S&P 500 is about 7% a year. So even if you put all your money in there, you're just barely staying, your nose is just barely above water. It's like a room is filling up in the movies. And like, barely able to breathe. That's the S&P 500. Is you're just barely staying up with inflation. So you're not actually ever making money. You're just barely breaking even. Real estate, I won't even get into because most people can't even afford their fucking single family home, let alone a second investment property. And then that comes with property tax, maintenance tax, a bunch of other legal risks if you're renting it out to people. And then you have to pick the right state, the right location. Hopefully you know how to do due diligence. Then you have to do management or have a management fee. There's just so many reasons why real estate overall sucks. Even Grant Cardone has $14 billion in real estate, and he's now incorporated Bitcoin into it. So instead of getting paid cash, you can have a percentage of it get put into Bitcoin. So then when the real estate sells eventually, you have this fat chunk of Bitcoin, and you have your appreciation on the. So it's happening on Friday. Today's Wednesday. On Friday this week, there's a big White House crypto event where they're going to announce a strategic wealth fund and Bitcoin crypto fund, where the U.S. is going to start buying cryptocurrencies as a reserve currency, like they have the Fort Knox gold, and they have different platinum reserves, gold reserves, silver reserves. Now they're going to have Bitcoin reserves and other crypto included in that, which I think is a mistake. It should just be all Bitcoin. But nonetheless, it's happening. Bitcoin has averaged, and it fluctuates depending on when you hear this, but about a 50% CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. So the stock market, the SPY and S&P 500 has had about a 7% CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. So, if you put your money in there, 7% compounded every single year, you're doing pretty good. Tony Robbins in his book, Money Master the Game, talked about how even a janitor had a $30 million net worth over 40 years of just putting his money into the S&P 500. A janitor had a $30 million net worth over 40 or 50 years, just dollar cost averaging. A fucking janitor into the SPY, 7% CAGR over 40 years. Guy had $30 million. So now let this sink in. Imagine Bitcoin has a 50% CAGR. The SPY has a 7%. And by the way, if you know anything about the eighth wonder of the world, compounding interest, the difference between 7% compounded annual growth and 50% compounded annual growth, it's so astronomically, ridiculously different of a number when you look 10 years, 20, 30 years down the road, that I can confidently say Michael Saylor predicts that Bitcoin's 50% CAGR will come down to 29% CAGR as it grows, and then eventually a 14% CAGR when it's hit like $10 million per Bitcoin. Right now we're at 90,000. It'll be $10 million per Bitcoin. That if I do nothing, I'll be a multi-billionaire in Bitcoin denominated in US dollars. If I do nothing for the rest of my life and just let Bitcoin keep doing its compounded annual growth rate of 50%, eventually going down to 29%, and eventually going down to 14%. That's the power of live below your means like a poor person, right? Like I lived poor for so long, dude. Everybody was like, where's the car and where's the this and where's the that? I was like, no, bro, I'm living poor because I'm saving all my money and investing it. I didn't actually save it. I lived below my means. So for example, if I made 200 grand, I lived off 60. Right. And
really,
this is just like quick math, just making it up. Yeah. Like after taxes, I have 200 grand and I'd live off 60, and then I'd save the 140 and I'd put it into, I did real estate and precious metals and stocks. And now I'm like 100% all in on Bitcoin. I still have some diversification in venture capital and stuff, but like 95% Bitcoin and MicroStrategy stock. But yeah, dude, man, literally nothing else matters. And that's why I just dominate this conversation, because like everything else you talk about, it doesn't matter. Like people can go back and watch this in 5 years and be like, oh God, he was right. Just like when I was buying Bitcoin at $9,000 and I told everybody, buy it now, you're going to get a 10X on this in the next 4 years. Unfortunately, for those who didn't listen, I was right. I bought Bitcoin at 9,000, and in 4 years it went to 109,000. So it literally went from if you put $9,000 in it, you'd have $109,000. Here's a better example to make it a little bit more fun. If you put $1 million on it, you'd have $10 million.
Wow.
In 4 years, Jay, in 4 years. So here's where the math comes in. If you have that $1 million and you put it in real estate in those 4 years, it might be worth 1.5, but you also have interest. You have to pay on the property that you're probably not fully 100% in. You probably have some debt, so you have interest. You have property tax, maintenance tax, operating costs. You probably have to pay a management company, or if it's your personal residence, you have all these other attachments and expenses to it. And at the end of the day, it's not even your property because you don't actually own it until you've paid it all off. And so terrible investment. You have to pay closing costs. You have to pay commissions. There's all these different fees attached to it. So again, all my buddies in real estate, and I have a lot of them, some of them are billionaires, and they made it all in real estate. And they're like, whenever I say Bitcoin's way better, they're slowly starting to be like, you know what? I actually think I actually think you're right. Like slowly at first they were like, no, you're crazy. But now that like the government's buying it, it's going, BlackRock's pitching it to everybody. They've seen that I'm like, how much did your net worth grow in the last 4 years? And they're like 15%. And I'm like, mine went up 1,150%. So that's where you just kind of do the math. Like, imagine if your entire net worth went up 10 times in 4 years. That's pretty much what you get with Bitcoin, is your entire net worth will go up 10x in 4 years. And that's sort of ish, depending on when you've bought in or dollar cost average. That's pretty accurate to what you can expect moving forward, probably for the next cycle or two or three. But Michael Saylor puts Bitcoin at $13 million in 20 years, so 2045. At a base case, 13 million, and at the high case, he puts it at $49 million per Bitcoin. So right now at 90 grand, you're looking at about 140x in 20 years, 140x. So that's why I was just sitting down at dinner. You like sales with Andy Elliott, the sales guy. He and I just had dinner together. We were at the Zenith Mastermind, and he sat next to me with his wife, and I was talking about Bitcoin, and I said, bro, just put $1 million on it. And base case in 20 years, you'll have $140 million for your kids. So, hey guys, I put $1 million over here, and it's 20 years later, you have 140 million now. Boom. And he was like, done, I'm doing it. And so, Andy will, and I even said, hey, if in 5 years it's gone down, I'll pay you the difference. So if he puts if he puts $1 million in, and then in 5 years it's not at least $1 million, it's gone down to 700 grand. I said, I'll pay you the $300,000 difference, or whatever the math is. Cause it's not going to go down. It's impossible. Like in 5 years, it'll only go up. Just like 4 years ago, it was 9 grand. I told everybody, fucking sell your house, take out a mortgage, take out a HELOC, do whatever you got to do, sell your precious metals, sell your stocks, buy Bitcoin now at $9,000. And anybody who listened to me is up 10x, because right now it's at 90 grand, but it went to 109. So it's actually like 11x. But yeah, anybody who listened to me is up 10x. So that's why I know I'll confidently make that bet. For people that I know, I'll say that to. I'm not going to just say it to like a random stranger on the street, even though it actually the same thing is true. I can't make that to every single person out there, but that should reflect my confidence that like, I'm all in, baby. The only reason I'm even in business, the only reason I even have a software company and another education brand is because, I want to help people. And I think the number one way to help people is to spread the message and the love and the gospel basically of Bitcoin, and how it's the only thing that matters, bro. But I can get into, I can throw it back to you for like sales and marketing and branding. Cause like, that all helps. That, by the way, that all helps you make the money to then buy the investments that you need, to then go make the investments that are going to help you escape the hurdle rate. And the hurdle rate is the percentage I explained of 8 to 14% a year of the money expansion, which means all of the things you want go up 8 to 14% every single year, bro. Imagine something costs 8 to 14% more every single year. That means your company has to at least be growing 8 to 14% a year. Profit, not revenue, profit. That means your employees' salaries need to go up 8 to 14% a year. That means your customers' salaries need to go up 8 to 14% a year. That's why I'm saying, bro, when you continue to stretch this out for 15 to 20 years with AI that's cheaper, faster, better, and doesn't need its salary to go up, because your employees, your customers, they're going to, I can't afford it. I can't afford this. Eggs have gone up 278% in the last couple of months. Bro, 278%? That's the best fucking thing you could have invested in, was eggs. It just goes to show you, though, people who don't understand this, they're in trouble. And when you start to extrapolate this out, Trump is going to print tens of trillions of dollars during his term. That's going to increase the money supply even more than the Biden administration. The good news is rich people are about to get so rich. It's going to be insane. Oh, it's going to be so good for the people who are well positioned. But for the people who are not well positioned, oh God, bless their soul, they're going to be crushed, and they're going to be solely reliant upon the government to hand them free universal basic income and stimulus checks through tokenized US dollars in the form of a token, a digital token, because everything now is just digital anyways, right? If I send you if I do anything with legitimate money, it's not paper. It's my credit card. It's a check. It's a wire transfer. It's Zelle. It's PayPal. It's Cash App. It's crypto. Like all of it. I'm buying my Lamborghini with Bitcoin. Like people go, oh, but you can't spend it. Yeah, you can. Most places do accept it. You can go to Chipotle and they accept it. And again, you could list things, but somebody will. Yeah. Starbucks. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, but okay, cool. Look, I don't care about the buts because I don't actually want to spend my Bitcoin. I use it as a store of value. So I don't need to spend it. Like real estate. Well, you can't spend your house. Exactly. That would be a stupid argument to be like, you can't spend your house. Well, yeah, it's a store of value, right? I don't want to spend my house. I use it to store value. Even though a house in most cases is a terrible store of value. Because here's an example. I bought my house in 2017 and it's doubled since I bought it. But had I bought Bitcoin in 2017 instead, I'd be up 35x. So had I bought a bunch of Bitcoin instead, I put like $300,000 down to buy this house when I did. It was 1.2 million. Now it's 2.5. It doubled. And if I put the 300 grand in Bitcoin, I'd have about $12 million right now.
300K would have been $12 million.
Yeah.
And
by the way, that's liquid. That's net liquid, not like, oh, my house appreciated and, so my house doubled, which is nice. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Normally it takes 20 years for your house to double. Mine doubled in like 6-7 years. And now it's kind of flatlined. Like in 2021, I think it doubled. So it actually doubled in like 4 years. And then it kind of like flatlined. But yeah, like, bro, again, when you look at everything, it's like, make your own decisions, invest in something, but you have to invest in something. And the SPY, SP 500, that's just going to keep your nose above the water. You're technically just waiting to drown. Like as soon as it goes a little bit higher, you're drowning. You're drowning. As soon as Trump prints $10 trillion, $20 trillion in his term, you're drowning. My house goes up another 50%, maybe 100% during Trump's term. Watch. It went up. My house doubled during the Biden term. I think it's going to double again during the Trump term. And now we have a debt spiral where just to pay the interest, like you have interest on your credit card debt. You're like, oh, I use my credit card. And if I don't pay it, I have interest on it. And it grows really quick and we're fucked. It's like 25%.
Right.
The government's obviously massively in debt. They're the worst. But just the interest payment on the debt is over like $1.5 trillion. The interest. So we have to, we can't even pay our debt. We can't even pay our debt down, let alone the fact that we have to pay $1.5 trillion just to make the interest payment. That doesn't even begin to cover the costs that we have, which is the reason we're in debt, because we have so many expanding, the balance, but a balanced budget doesn't exist. The budget just keeps expanding. And so point is, I think Trump's been doing a lot of this stuff to stir the hornet's nest, to intentionally make the market crash so that Jerome Powell has to lower interest rates and increase the ability for the government to print more money, which is ironic because Doge is trying to come in and cut costs, knowing though that by cutting costs, he's disrupting things in the government, and by doing his tariffs, he's causing the market to crash with uncertainty. And Friday this week, March 7th, he announces some huge crypto thing. And then March 19th, Jerome Powell has the FOMC meeting and he's going to lower interest rates probably by 25 basis points, maybe 50 basis points. And the market's going to go bananas. And slowly but surely, the government's going to start printing money. The reverse repo market is a way the government does some sneaky quantitative easing. And normally when the reverse repo market hits a certain point, the government can come in and they can get their bids covered and people will say, hey, don't worry, we're not going to let you guys get fucked. We'll print some more money. The government's there now. And so the printer is going to turn on. Every 4 years when the next president comes in, they have to refinance the debt. Ta-da! That's Trump. He's the new president. He has to refinance the debt. There's about, I think it's something like $7 trillion that has to be refinanced. Holy shit.
Wow.
And so Point is, the only way is to either implode the country and we go into a great recession, the worst we've ever seen. Trump's not going to let that happen because he says we're going to win, baby, win. And so what's Trump going to do for us to win? He's going to do what the Biden administration did, which is print that money, baby. It's going to prop up the stock market because we're not really in a recession if the people are hurting, but the stock market's up, right, Jay? If the stock market's up, real estate's up, crypto's up, but the people are hurting, we're not really in a recession. And so that's the difference is right now people are hurting, but stock market's basically up, real estate's basically up, like basically just below all-time highs. And so again, everyone's like, bubble's got to burst, we've got to crash. They can't let it happen. Ever since 2008, they bailed out the banks. They shouldn't have done that. But we would have had a worse recession had they not bailed out the banks. But we only had a little tiny multi-year recession instead of what would have probably been like an 8 to 10 year recession. We had a little small multi-year recession. They bailed out the banks by printing money. Ever since then, that was it. They just said, we're never going to let the true bubble burst ever beyond a minor blip like COVID. We had like a 6-month massive, just hysterical 50% correction in the stock market. And then what happened? 6 months later, we were at a new all-time high. Why? The government printed trillions of dollars. Same thing's happening here. Markets are crashing a little bit because of uncertainty of tariffs and Trump taking over and the refinancing of debt and all the other bullshit going on. He's going to come in. He's going to create. What do? The government's so good at this. They create the problem and they're waiting with the solution. But they created the problem so then they could come in with the solution. It's almost like Bill Gates. He created malware for Microsoft to then sell you the software to fix the malware. Oh my gosh. And so this is what's happening. The government is going to stir the pot, have tariffs create uncertainty. The markets are crashing a little bit because of that. And then Jerome Powell is going to say, all right, you got me. Let's lower interest rates 20 to 50 bips. And let's print some money, expand the budget. And boom, we're going to probably print a few $1 trillion. Markets are going to rip. Trump's going to say, see, I told you I'm the best. Markets are doing the best they've ever done. We hit a new all-time high with me as the president. And it's all because he printed money. Then they'll give out stimulus checks and people will be happy. And then by the end of his term, the inflation will be uppercutting people in the face. My house will double again. Making houses completely unaffordable for every single person who doesn't already own a house. Interest rates will then have to come back up at an even higher rate than they were before, where mortgages were at like 7-8%. Everybody's freaking out, but they were like back in the 80s, they were 18%. So this is nothing. I think we're going to go back to that, and we're going to just keep having this vicious, massive whipsaw. And the only thing that's going to be safe is probably a couple different key assets. And I believe personally, Bitcoin's one of them. I can say that as financial advice because it's a commodity, and I can't tell you what stocks to buy. Those are securities, but Bitcoin's classified as a commodity, just like real estate. And I can tell people to buy a home, just like I can tell people to buy Bitcoin. And so I am telling people, I think that's a great place to be. I think we can talk about sales and marketing, but like, again, it's almost like the root cause. It's almost like we all have cancer and we're dying. Does anything else matter, or should we talk about our health? And that's kind of how I feel is like, you know, I go on podcasts and I talk all the time, and like, you know, people are always like, what's the best thing? And I'm like, yo, let's go make money with sales and marketing, but it's only so that we can then get the cash to then buy the asset. Because when the government prints money, the asset goes up so fast, which is why we'll see Bitcoin go to 200 grand, 300 grand, 400 grand, 500 grand, 600 grand, $1 million, 2 million, 10 million, and beyond. And people will be like, oh my God, can you imagine if you bought it? And I'll be like, yeah, can you imagine when I said to buy it at 9 grand, not listening? And now it's at 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. Fuck. And that's why I'm just going to disappear off the internet at some point because, you know,
you're going to be on a private island. And
I don't want to. I don't want to be. I don't want to be a target. You know, I always walk around strapped, just as a disclaimer. I've got a CCW, so I've always got a gun on me, and pepper spray and a knife. I'm one of the crazy people. I'm one of the people during COVID who bought my entire family military grade body armor, gas masks, helmets, rifles, shotguns, pistols, bullets, everything. I've got my own little setup, but. Yeah, dude, you just got to be ready for what's coming. And I just feel like there's a combination between just like the most abundance and success and beautiful AI that's going to make the world so much better. And there's the possibility that there's the 1% and the 99%. And with all that abundance, most of it goes up to the 1%, and then it like slightly trickles down and touches like the poor people. Like the government's like, here, we'll give you guys free iPhones so you can have access to the free money we give you to force things on you. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Let me ask you a question.
So you become like a paid slave is how is the direction it could be, you know?
You're like a pawn on the chessboard.
Yeah.
And someone's controlling you, or a puppet master. So that was fire. So one last question, and if you're truly about spreading the message, the gospel of, you know, this perpetual wealth, and I think we need to have an ongoing conversation if you're open to it.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, because I'm down.
Because we can do that. Yes. So yeah, okay, cool. Last question, because I want to respect your time, is this: like, speak to the person who doesn't, like, obviously you had to start and live simply. Let's talk to the 99% of the people, you know, are not making six figures. Let's say they're making 50,000, 60,000 for their jobs, and they want to get to, you know, somewhere even remotely close, so that they're not stuck in this inflation that we talk about. So how do they start? Like, let's start from the very beginning and just break down, like, they may have fear, like, because they're going to lose money. That's the one thing, but that's different from a stock market. Number two is what platform, and you talked about dollar cost averaging. So I can't afford a $90,000 like stock, is because it's not Bitcoin's not a stock. But if I can put $100 or $1,000 or $100,000 toward Bitcoin, I can buy units. Talk to us about that and how we can go from zero to hero. Pixel, cha-ching.
Yeah. So, all right. So the way that I'll frame it is this, because I think this is a helpful frame for people. Because this is the Sales Ninja show. So I'll give you a sales ninja tactic. When you're selling, you're essentially just a broker, because you're representing, most of the time, I can't even think of a case just off the cuff that you wouldn't be doing what I'm about to say. You're representing a company's product. You're selling somebody else's thing as a broker. Hey, that's not even my thing. This is the company I got a job at because I got to pay my bills. And so I guess I indirectly represent them as a broker. And if I can sell you something, I'll get paid a commission. That's a broker, right?
That's right.
The broker, I raise capital for a buyer who's going to buy a company or a real estate property or something. I can broker the sell side. I can broker the buy side. And so really, I almost think you want to replace your identity as a salesperson, which also kind of helps you feel alleviated around, like, maybe the personality trait of, like, I don't like to sell. I feel icky. I feel weird pressuring people. So what you rather do is you create this identity of a broker. And when you have the identity of a broker, my job, Jay, is to facilitate value. My job is to help you on that side get connected on this side. And I'm in the middle, like a mediator, trying to make sure that this company has the best product and service for this person over here. And then I'm just in the middle as a broker. I'm not trying to sell you anything, Jay. I'm not trying to pressure you. My only job is to understand, is the thing I'm trying to broker and facilitate of value? And if it is, then it's really easy for me to just have a conversation with you that feels totally non-salesy, where I can just better understand your situation and then be like, okay, this product is the best product based on what you've told me. Ta-da. So if I'm brokering a house, I would just literally, like, the house would sell itself. I'd be like, Jay, what house are you looking for? Great. I found it. You want to go look at it? And then you'd go and look at the house, and the house would kind of sell itself.
Right.
And if you had questions, I could fill it in. I could, like, maybe paint some pictures for you and be like, imagine your kids playing over here and you set up a playground, or imagine the amazing Christmas tree you could set up in this room and the memories you guys can make. So I could help paint some pictures if I feel like I really brokered the right house. So I like the identity of being a broker. The other thing that I like is trying to find products and services where I get to sell to rich people. Because what I find is, if I'm brokering a product and a service for a rich person, rich people typically, they're not going to care that much about price. And so you also don't have to sell a rich person as much, where a poor person usually comes with 1,000 questions. And, like, a poor person is usually harder to sell to because they have more questions, more uncertainty, more fear, more scarcity mindset. They have less money, so they want to negotiate and push back and forth on price a little bit, see if they can get a better deal, try to justify the price. I found it for cheaper. Okay, well then go fucking buy it cheaper. And so it's like, and I don't say it in a rude way, just like we're talking sales. It's like there's non-qualified buyers and there's qualified buyers, right? You got your SQLs and NQLs. And if you're a non-qualified buyer or lead, then I want to send you over somewhere else to get something, but I don't want to waste my time talking with somebody. So I find when I'm working with a rich person, like for example, when I went and I got my Lamborghini, the guy didn't sell me at all. I got in the car, I test drove it, and I started laughing because he was like, put it in Corsa mode. I got the Performante. He's like, put it in Corsa mode and just floor it as fast as you can. He's like, don't worry, we're going to just go straight off the off ramp. So like no cops or anything, we'll be quick. And I just started laughing because it was like 0 to 100 miles an hour in what felt like 1 second, but it was probably like 3.6 seconds. And I started laughing and I was like, ha! I was like, this is the best thing ever. I was like, I can't believe that. I can't believe that this is like a street legal car. Like they just let you drive this like as my daily driver.
Yeah.
And I literally pulled off like the off ramp and I said,
Yeah.
sold. I said, sold. I'm buying this when we get back to the dealership. And then I didn't buy that specific one. Yeah. I didn't buy that specific one. I ordered one on the website with like all the decked out upgrades and stuff. And so mine's actually even better because it's got all the upgrades that I want and the color and all that.
Yeah.
But I was like, but it's the same car, right? Same engine. And I was just like, the guy never sold me once. It was just literally get in the car, test drive it. And so rich people, and by the way, the car's $350,000. And so I didn't negotiate on price because I don't think you even can. It's not like you're buying a Prius or a Toyota or whatever. I'm not at CarMax. I just was like, done. Like, no question. I fucking want this. I've been living below my means and investing for a decade. Like, this is it. This is my time to shine. I sold my company. I didn't go buy the car right then when most people would have been like, I sold my company, time to buy the car. I said, no, I'm going to put all the money on Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin's going to grow so much that then I'll maybe take some of that money, which is like free money at that point, and take that money. It's like you went and gambled money and then like went up 10x and you're like, yay, and you take some of that money that you got from there. And so that's what I'm doing. And I can even justify that, like the Bitcoin I bought at $9,000, that's now $100,000. I'm actually buying my car for like $30,000, not $350,000, because I bought Bitcoin. I bought 3 Bitcoin for $30,000 and now it's $300,000. Ta-da! My Lamborghini was actually $30,000. That is the difference of what I'm talking about. I can go buy a house in the future for $10 million with a Bitcoin that's worth $10 million. And I paid $9,000 for that Bitcoin. So it's really like when I buy a $10 million house in the future, it cost me $9,000. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I bought Bitcoin for $9,000. Now it's worth 10 million. Boom. And so you guys starting to get this mindset. And so when you sell to rich people or you broker to rich people, they're not thinking about price really. So they have less questions. A rich person almost always is decisive. They fucking make a decision and they stick with it and they live with it. And they're not going to come back with buyer's remorse. And a rich person usually already knows the decision they want. So I don't need you to sell me. In fact, he knew, the sales manager, don't sell the person because you'll turn them off. Because if you start to sell me, I'm going to be like, dude, shut your fucking mouth. Like, I know what I want. I don't need you. If I have a question, you can then tell me, but like, it's a Lamborghini, it sells itself, or it's a mansion, it sells itself, or it's a yacht, it sells itself, or it's a private jet, it sells itself. I'm here to answer your questions. You see the difference? If you're a broker selling to a rich person, your job is really to find them what they want after you've asked them, Jay, what are you looking for? Tell me exactly what you're looking for. I then go and find what you're looking for. I then bring it to you, and then you look at it and decide if you want to buy it, and I just confirm, and then I broker the deal. Ta-da! Like, think about it. Somebody's going to get a sales commission on that Lambo. I'm telling you right now, not one single person sold the Lambo to me. I bought it. Same thing with this house. My wife and I, we found this house. We walked into it. It was the model home, the show home. And we were like, boom, this is the house I want. And the lady was like, because I was 27 and my wife was 23 at the time. They were like, and we were in like flip-flops and tank tops and, same thing I'd wear now. I'm wearing a hoodie. And she was like, you mean your parents? And I was like, no, I'm buying this house. And so point is, the lady didn't sell us. She was actually like thinking we couldn't afford it and thought we were like joking.
Of course.
And then that bitch still got the commission. And I was like, when I bought the house, I think she got like whatever $1.2 million house commission is. She got like $20,000-$30,000 because she was there. She was just there. She was the person. She didn't even sell it. I literally hated her. I was like, God, is there any way she cannot get the commission for this house? Because she literally was like, you guys can't afford this. You're in your 20s.
Man. And she got the credit for it. Yeah.
I was like, don't you understand? Like, I'm actually buying the house. And so point is, if you're just in the right place at the right time and a rich person wants to buy something, you get the commission. And so look at yourself as being a broker, not a salesperson. And the distinction is a salesperson might use pressure tactics. They're really doing their job to sell you to get the commission. By my definition, a broker's job is to align value, facilitate value. I find a person who wants to buy something. I then go and find the person who sells that thing. And I'm the one who connected the seller and the buyer together as the broker. And by doing so, I get compensated commission. So there's really no difference in the outcome of a salesperson and a broker. They both get paid commission based on a transaction, but it's an identity shift. And it's an identity shift. I want to be a broker to rich people. And I just asked the rich person, what do you want? And then I go and I get it. And that's literally what happened. I got back to the dealership and the guy said, okay, would you like that Lamborghini because it is for sale? Or would you like to order one? I'll give you exactly what you'd like. And I said, I'd like to get exactly what I'd like. We fucking checked all the boxes. Boom, it was ordered. It shipped from Italy. It took like a month and a half because it was like the last shipment from Italy. I pick it up on Friday. Ironically, the same day.
No way.
The same day. I was supposed to pick it up last week, but it got stuck in the port in Long Beach. So boohoo, sad me. I had to wait a week. But so point is, dude, like I have like real life examples of like me as a person where I literally was like, you don't need to sell the house to me. I'm buying it. The decision's already been made and somebody got commission. Lamborghini, I bought it. Somebody got commission. It's like, dude, I'm just out here dropping money and someone's just getting the commission and it's big commission. Like someone's making 40 grand a year. You said, bro, that's the commission they just got from just me buying something because I wanted to buy it. And so be a broker to rich people. And there's so many different ways you can do that. You could do it in real estate. You can do it with cars. You could do it with, one of my backgrounds is online education and affiliate marketing and people selling courses. And there's this big thing where like Jay has a course and I have a course and we both have different audiences. And mine's on personal branding and Jay's is on sales. Well, good salespeople usually have personal brands. Andy Elliott, Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk, Tony Robbins, you name it. So guess what? Our audiences probably might want to buy each other's courses. They might want to build their personal brand, and my personal brand people might want to learn better sales. And so Jay and I do a promotion together. By the way, I don't have this company anymore. This is a made up example that would have been something we could have done before I sold the company. And so Jay promotes my offer and then I promote Jay's offer. But if Jay and I didn't know each other, let's just say that there's another person in the middle, Susie, and Susie said, Mark, you've got to meet Jay. He's got this sales ninja community. They're diehard. They love Jay. And it's all about selling. And what do salespeople need? They need to build their brand. So I'll reach out to Jay and connect you and then just pay me 10% of whatever you guys make. And she says the same thing to you, Jay. When Mark promotes you, you pay me 10% of what he makes. So now Susie, who's the broker, she gets 10% of the promo on my side and on Jay's side. And she's making cleaned up, boom, boom, boom. So if Jay and I do 100 grand each, she's going to walk with $20,000, 10 grand from each of us. And so now Susie just made $20,000 by connecting us to do a promotion for each other, which might include getting on a podcast, then sending people to like a free training, like a webinar that then sells the program. And then I do it back to you, to my audience. And now, boom, Susie was the broker. She just made 20 grand in this hypothetical example. And Susie can go and run that back as many times as she wants with all the other people out there as a broker. She connected value. Do I want to come on a podcast, to be promoted to a free training, to sell my course? Absolutely. And if I said, Jay, do you want to do this now with my audience? I'll interview you on my show, and then we'll send people to your free program or your free webinar to sell your program. He'd be like, absolutely. So Susie did nothing. She didn't have to sell anything. She just connected two people that want the logical same thing. And boom, Susie would, because if Susie hits you up, would you say, yeah, absolutely, I'll pay you 10%? Yeah. It's all based on the performance of the thing. I don't have to pay her anything except for when the result happens, I then give her a cut. She brokered the deal. 10% is fair. That's usually the number, by the way, in this industry, 10%. Yeah. And so there you go, guys. That's how I've made millions of dollars as a broker in the industry. So I operate in the industry, but because I naturally in the industry know a ton of people who should meet each other, I used to, by the way, just make introductions because what goes around comes around. But now I'm more like a shark where now I'm like, yo, Jay, I'm going to connect you with somebody. But like, I want you to give me 10%. Is that cool? And Jay will be like, absolutely, bro. No problem. And you just have to confidently ask, And that's it. And now you don't have to be a salesperson for any company that has you under their thumb, so to speak, which isn't bad. I've been a salesperson. That's actually how I got started. I went and traveled the country, being like a back of the room closer for like seminars. So they'd be like, go to the back of the room and speak with Mark Black. Yeah. And I'd be in a suit and tie, and I'd be like, hey, everybody. And then I would even get stage time for I get like stage time for 5 or 10 minutes so I could build credibility with the room and do some little Tony Robbins shit. Everybody reach over and and I do some stuff to like build. So then they knew who I was and I had some more credibility. Maybe tell a little bit of my story, tell a joke, do a little exercise with everybody, and then be like, I'll be at the back of the room. So when Jay tells you to come speak with me, you guys now know who I am. Hey, everybody. And then boom. And I did that for years, and I made money on the weekends so that I could fund my actual business, because I was struggling in the beginning, because I was like, who am I to be selling this? So, I was struggling for the first couple of years. I immediately hired one of my friends out of college, which was a mistake, because then all the money had to go to him. So I got paid last. Because I was like, bro, I got you, quit your job. And he quit his job. So I was like, fuck. I was like, I got to make sure you get paid first. Because he actually went to like a really expensive school. So he was like, fuck it, bro, let's do it. But guess what? but here's the funny thing. When I sold my business, he then got a fat check, and I bought him a $35,000 Rolex, his dream watch.
Come on.
So trust me, he took the risk, but for 10 years, he then made legit money, and we sold, and he got a fat check, and he got his dream watch, and he's been retired for 9 months now, because he's like living the life. He's like, this is great. And he bought Bitcoin. He listened to me, and he bought Bitcoin at 25 grand and 50. He didn't buy it all at 25. He was a little scared. So I always give him shit for that, but he bought some at 25, some at 50. And so he's up. And so he's multiplied his bag. And so he's like enjoying retirement and surfing and going to the gym every day with me. And so, yeah, so he did the right thing by, jumping in with me, and I took care of him. But yeah, nonetheless, I cut my teeth as a salesperson, because I was like, shit, I got to pay the bills, and I don't have enough money coming in. So I would sell on the weekends for other people while running my company Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday. And so, yeah, my background is sales. I understand exactly what people are going through. And I only wish I knew more about this stuff later, because I went from the back of the room sales guy to the person who's running the event, who's on the stages, who's on the show, because I was like, that's the person who makes the most money, is the person who's up at the front. And so I quickly realized, if you don't want to be the person up in the front, then go from salesperson to broker, because then what I started to do too is I started to broker deals for the event. So rather than just being a salesperson, I said, I know other people who do events too. So then I started to say, hey, Jay, you do an event. My friend Bobby does an event. If I can get Jay to promote Bobby and send people to the conference, and we sell those people who attended the conference a $50K package for this real estate thing, you would get commission, because you sent your people to my other guy's seminar, and then they bought our $50K package. You, for sending them, would get commission. And I would get commission for selling them, but I would get double the commission, because you would then pay me, because I now connected you, Jay and Bobby, to send each other's attendees to each other's seminars, of which I then got more people to sell in the room. Plus, I would have you and Bobby pay me a little extra commission, because I got those people in the room as a broker. So then my brain was like, okay, I'm not just a back of the room sales guy. I'm a broker, double dipping. And then eventually I kept asking for more stage time so I could become the guy at the front of the room. And that, by the way, the more stage time I got, the more it increased my sales at the back of the room, because I had that much more posturing and positioning and credibility by being at the front of the room, that when I did sit down with people, I wasn't just that fucking guy who's the sales dude who you haven't talked to and his only job is to sit down and sell you. I actually had rapport with the audience and credibility. So again, I think those are kind of some of the different levels. You're not going to just jump to the end of the book and skip chapters. You have to go through your own version of chapters and stepping stones. But for me, that's how it was, is I transitioned from back of the room sales guy to broker to eventually being the front of the room. But now that I'm the quote unquote front of the room guy, I can do even more brokering, because I have a bigger brand with more people that know me, more people want to do deals and business and opportunities. So rather than looking at, I don't have the bandwidth, or I don't have the capacity to say yes to everything, but I do have the capacity to broker everything. And see, that's the difference, is as a broker, I have the capacity to connect an almost unlimited amount of opportunities I can connect and facilitate. And so rather than most people saying, no, I'm sorry, Jay, I can't do that, I'm so busy, I don't have the capacity or the bandwidth, I just say, let me introduce you to Cheryl or Johnny or Christopher. They're going to take amazing care of you. And then I call them up and I go, yo, I'm sending you somebody named Jay. I want you to take good care of him. And I want you to give me 10% of whatever's generated from this. And they go, you got it. And so now in my life, I actually have, because this is such a big thing for me, I have a separate LLC account that's used as a passive income LLC. And all of my broker commissions go into that account. And then I get a 20% deduction because it's passive income. It's not a full-time thing. And it also clears up my accounting and my bookkeeping from my other entities where I have true earned income attached to a business. That's like a quote unquote full-time job where it's like I own a software company, and that's a separate bank account, separate entity, separate ownership. And that'll pay Mark Lack a W-2 as an owner distribution. But I have a ton of little things where I'm just like all year round, I might make another $500,000, maybe more, sometimes $1 million, just purely brokering and facilitating deals. Like, for example, my buddy was like, hey, you sold your company. Do you think anybody would be interested in buying my company? And I was like, let me introduce you to a buyer. And the person bought his company for $6 million. And I said, hey, a normal broker would take 5%, maybe 10%. So you'd have to pay $300,000 to $600,000. I said, you're my boy. Can you just throw me a bone and give me $100,000? And he was like, boom. And he wired me $100,000. And I had already said this to him prior to the introduction to the buyer.
Good,
so
good.
I said, hey, I said, Jay, I got you, boy. I got you. I said, I want you to pay me $100,000. And he laughed. He's like, no problem. I got you. And I was like, just so you know, a broker would take $300,000 to $600,000. So $100,000 is like the homie hookup. And sure enough, boom, he got the money and he wired me $100,000. All I did was make a fucking intro, Jay. All I did was make an introduction over email, and I got $100,000. And you know what I did? I put it all on Bitcoin, and now that's worth like $400,000. So I really made $400,000 off of one introduction.
Come on.
Off of just an introduction. And so again, this is my point. What am I doing? I'm brokering rich transactions. A rich person wanted to pay $6 million to my other rich friend who wanted to sell his company for $6 million. And then as a homie hookup, he threw me $100,000. And it's like, guess what? Everybody was happy in the transaction. So it's like, most people have to go and slave away for $100,000. I literally made it over one introduction doing what I'm saying. So I'm teaching you guys right now, like, this is what I'm fucking talking about, is you just have to become a broker for rich people. And by the way, I'm not the world's best person at buying and selling companies, but I sure know people who are, and I can just connect them and get a cut. You guys starting to get it? I may not be the best real estate person. I don't even have my license, but I know rich people who own nice houses, and I know rich people who want to buy nice houses. Ta-da! And so you get the point. There's an unlimited amount of opportunity. As a broker, I need no credentials, no qualifications. Sometimes you need licenses and shit like that. I get it, but there's still workarounds, by the way. I'm brokering and facilitating some stuff that requires you to be a financial advisor or a actuary and have an actuary license. Fuck that. I don't have to do any of that. There's always a loophole. Where it's an ethical, legal loophole, and there's always a way. So the point is, this is what you should transition towards, not being a salesperson, but being a broker and a facilitator of rich people's transactions.
Man, I can do that, and I can totally. I do it all the time, and people make a boatload of money, and I haven't even asked. So you do.
Yes, that's the first part. Is you're already doing it. You're just not asking.
That's right. So are you putting together like agreements or contracts or T's and C's?
Usually no. I have them. But usually no, because people are just
really.
I think most people are, even though we are probably at the peak historical time in the world where people don't trust each other. Another reason why Bitcoin has a strong use case, because it's trustless. You don't need to trust a bank, a custodian, a government. You and I can transact between each other, and nobody can stop us. And I can leave the country with all my money, and nobody can stop me. They can't sanction it. They can't block it. They can't restrict it. They can't lock my account, assuming I have self-custody. But yeah, dude, I usually don't have contracts. Most people are inherently good people, and I'm usually doing transactions. I'm usually doing transactions between people I trust.
Wow.
And Yeah, I've been screwed over in other situations. Like we've talked about offer publishing. Like I've been screwed over sometimes with celebrity publishing deals, but I haven't been screwed over ever on a broker deal because I think inherently, I think number one, it's a small world, and if you do make a mistake and fuck somebody over, it's gonna come out, and nobody's gonna want to do a deal with you.
Yeah.
Number two, there's also like this inherent rug pull that could be done. Like I could call up the other guy and be like, by the way, Jay just fucked me. I think you should tell all your customers that just bought to refund and fuck Jay. And then you'd be like, oh, and then your reputation just, and then I could post online. Number three, I have a big enough brand that I could just like post about you every day for a week and just tag everybody I know in the industry and be like, fuck this guy. He just screwed me over. And immediately that would cost you so much more than just paying me what we agreed to. And so I think inherently those are like unspoken truths. Like don't rob somebody because there's a chance they pull a gun on you and blast you right there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't be stupid. Don't come up on somebody like, like we live in a crazy world now. I assume everybody has a gun on them because I have one. So I assume everybody has a gun on them. Like, what you come up, boom. It's like, bro, you're not expecting it, but like, you just got to assume everybody has a gun. So you got to assume like, if I screw somebody over for a 10% broker fee, that shit could come back and bite me in the ass. And I know it's not going to bite you in the ass with like a lawyer. Cause you could be like, good luck. We have verbal agreements or a text message agreement. So like, and it'll get dragged out. My lawyer will drag it out for 18 months. It'll cost way more than the 10% commission. Okay. I'll get something that's going to cost more than that. Your reputation. I'm really good at SEO and marketing. So I could literally create YouTube videos, articles. I could go and pay 1,000 different people on Fiverr to write a fake review about you and just fuck your brand up. I could go and spam trap your Google reviews and just have like 1,000 Indian bots write negative reviews on your Google review. I could buy 1 million. I could buy 1 million fake Instagram followers and just fucking tank your algorithm on your Instagram or your YouTube or your Facebook. I could fuck.
You're a dangerous man.
I could fuck somebody up. And that's before even going to like hackers that I know and be like, yo, let's really fuck this dude up, hack everything he has and give it to me and shut it down. Like, So that's where it's like, it could be like, it's just not worth it. So that's why it's like, I think people are just inherently smart enough to be like, especially as you go up the totem pole, you're like, don't fuck with rich people because if I wanted to just make a point, like it doesn't cost that much money. Like, at some point too, if you get a rich person really mad, it's like, is it worth me paying however much money I want to make something bad happen? Like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, just don't fuck with rich people. It's just like a lesson. It's like, and that's why I think inherently, if you just do broker deals, like most people are going to be like, okay, like we agreed to this. Like we agreed to it. I could put a contract in place, but like even a lot of my other buddies I can name who are really big in the industry, they just do handshake deals too. And some of them are lawyers. They're like, they have their own law firm and they have a $500 million a year business. And a lot of them are like, I'll send you the agreement later. Let's just do a handshake. And I'm like, you're a lawyer. Like, but I think at the end of the day, we all know, like, and I taught this in one of our offer publishing programs, is it's like a contract is nothing more than something that can be used in the event that we do get a lawsuit and litigation takes place and we have to go to the courtroom and we have to present this to a judge and we have to have a defendant and there's a lawsuit actually taking place and we present the contract and we go through, this is what we agreed to, this is what was signed, this is what the language says, and then the lawyers try to pick apart where there might be a way to defend their client and win the case. And so it's like a contract does nothing but give you some ammunition in court. So even having a contract means you still have to file the lawsuit, go to the courtroom, force the other party there, and pay for lawyers, have a judge, and make a case. And then really good lawyers are going to drag anything out as long as they want. Like a good lawyer can drag something out for years. And that's going to cost money upon money upon money. And then eventually you're going to be like, it's just not worth it. Let's just settle. Let's just walk away. And that's the game. That's the game. So that's why you always know somebody doesn't know what they're talking about when they're like, I'll sue you. We have a contract. It's like, do you really know what that means? That means we're going to be going battling in court for 3 years and you're probably going to tap out before me because I have more money than you. Or we both have money, heaven forbid, and we just battle it out until somebody's
a lot of money together.
Somebody's just eventually taps out because they're like, I was mad about this, but now I'm over it. We've been battling for 3 years and I was only supposed to get paid $100,000, but I'm $400,000 in lawsuit fees. So this is so stupid. I don't want the headache. I don't want the stress. I already have enough going on. Ta-da. And so that's why, bro, like, always just avoid it. That's why I'm always the same way too. I'm like, whatever. If somebody did screw me over, I honestly, before I would probably do any of the crazy shit I listed, I'd probably be like, whatever. Because it's just not worth it. My life's amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's always that little scenario where you just got to be careful. You know what I mean?
Okay, so let's table this, because I'm going to ask in the next episode, you know, if someone's starting from scratch and they're fearful and they don't know where to start to invest the Bitcoin, in terms of like even what platforms, what apps, what, like on their phones.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You want me to save it? I'll save it. I'll
Yeah,
save it.
go ahead,
I want
go
to
ahead.
answer it. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's two suggestions. For my grandma, I would say go and buy IBIT, which again, this is not financial advice because these are referring to stocks and ETFs. I would buy IBIT, which is the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, and that'll give you exposure to hypothetically owning Bitcoin on paper. But they passed a law for in-kind redemption. So that means that, like, in the event that you owned $90,000 of IBIT stock, you could convert that into one single Bitcoin, because the dollar equivalents would be in kind. And because the ETF represents paper Bitcoin, you could then exchange it for real Bitcoin. So problem is it's an ETF. So BlackRock takes a 2% fee. There are other Bitcoin ETFs with lower fees. You're welcome to look at those. BlackRock's just the biggest company in the whole world, management company. So I would probably just stick with them for that reason and pay the little delta of the fee. 2% fee doesn't sound like a lot, but it compounds and it ends up being a pretty big chunk. However, it is the safest thing for you to do if you were my grandma, or you can get a little bit riskier. Again, not financial advice, and you could invest in MicroStrategy, which is a derivative of an ETF. They just buy Bitcoin, just like the ETF does. So they both theoretically do the same thing, buy Bitcoin. However, MicroStrategy's created a lot of different financial products on top of their 500,000 Bitcoin they've accumulated, and they're probably going to become a Bitcoin bank. And so MicroStrategy has a more asymmetric upside because they use leverage and debt to buy Bitcoin and then create financial products around it, and such as bonds and other things. And so MicroStrategy is a no fee. There's no fees. So MicroStrategy has more volatility and risk, which means it has greater asymmetric upside potential. And no fee. IBIT has a fee, but it's going to be a little bit more stable, like the price of Bitcoin would be, where MicroStrategy has a higher volatility. So if Bitcoin is going to go up 100x, 200x, MicroStrategy is going to go up more, where IBIT will match the Bitcoin move. So if Bitcoin moves 100% or 100x, the IBIT stock will, but you had to pay a 2% fee. But MicroStrategy might go up 500x if Bitcoin goes up 100x. So you get a disproportionate return. For example, had I put all my money on MicroStrategy when I sold my company, rather than making, a lot, I would have made fuck you money. I would have made like $100 million in 4 years. Had I put it on MicroStrategy. And so, lesson learned, MicroStrategies, but also it has a lot more volatility on the downside. So I would do a combination, maybe 80-20, 80% IBIT and 20% MicroStrategy if you have a small risk tolerance, and maybe a longer time horizon. However, if you have a higher risk tolerance, then I'd flip it and I'd do 80% MicroStrategy, 20% IBIT. If I was I had a 10 to 20 year hold time horizon to hold this for 10 to 20 years, not having it affect my sleep, not having it affect my emotions at all, just putting in a dollar amount that I feel safe and comfortable with. That if all these billionaires and this random dude on the internet named Mark, but more importantly, all these billionaires and governments and institutions and BlackRock are correct, pretty unlikely they're going to let themselves get screwed when they print the money. This thing's going to go up a lot. The question is how much. And if I'm willing to hold it for 10 to 20 years, then you'll be extraordinarily happy that you have IBIT and MSTR stock, which is MicroStrategy. They rebranded as Strategy, but the stock ticker is still MSTR. So you'll be very happy about that. And that would be my recommendation to people who already have a Charles Schwab account or the ability to buy Apple stock or Amazon stock. That would be your move. If you wanted to get a little bit higher up the level of like, I actually want to own real Bitcoin, then I would download the Coinbase app. I would upgrade to the Pro for like $20 a month, and it immediately saves you a bunch of fees on what you'll buy. And so it's worth it right there. The cost covers itself tremendously. It also gives you FDIC insurance of $1 million versus $250. And it also gives you high priority customer support. And so it's much better to pay the $20 a month. Then you sync up your bank account or choice of preference to buy, and then you would buy the Bitcoin. Just literally it says Bitcoin, click it, press buy. Jay says, somebody in the comment, J-Ma says, if you have $1,000 to $2,000, what and how would you invest it? I would put it on either Bitcoin over the Coinbase app or any of the apps that you prefer. You can buy it on PayPal, Cash App. You can buy it on almost any platform. It's soon you'll be able to buy it inside of your American banks like JP Morgan and Wells Fargo this year because of the new law that was passed or repealed. It was the SAB 121, which the Biden administration blocked. It now got repealed. So now banks can custody your Bitcoin for you. So at JP Morgan and Wells Fargo and Fidelity, you'll be able to buy Bitcoin right out of your Wells Fargo and JP Morgan app where you have your checking and savings. This year for most of the big ones. And then obviously slow laggards will come out later. I would buy either $1,000 to $2,000 for JMA of just Bitcoin on Coinbase. Or I would, if you have the ability, depending on if you live in America, I would put it all on MSTR, MicroStrategy stock. Again, not financial advice. That's just for entertainment and education purposes only, because those are stocks. Bitcoin, though, I can say to buy. But yes, you guys get the point nonetheless. Just disclaimers that I have to say.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. And then hold it for 10 to 20 years and you'll be extremely happy. And if you have the ability, I would dollar cost average and I would slowly add more and more to my position. Because what will inevitably happen is you will look back and say, oh my gosh, I should have put more. And you can't do that because you can't go back in time. So just know that every single person in the history of 16 years of Bitcoin always wishes they had more and wishes they did not sell. The people who bought it at $1 and sold it at $100, which is 100x, are probably kicking themselves or committed suicide because it's now it's now $100,000.
Wow.
And the people who bought it at $100 and saw it go to $1,000 and then $10,000 and then $20,000, they probably sold. Statistically, they did sell. You can actually go and look it up. It's the public blockchain. That's the cool thing about it. It's an open, transparent ledger. You can see every transaction that's ever happened in history. So this isn't hypothetical. You can actually go look up and see how many of those scenarios did happen. So it's mathematically correct that most people did sell too early. And so my point is to JMA and everybody listening, you will want more in the future and you will regret selling it. And so it's one of those things where if you only have $1,000 to $2,000, just as soon as you get another little chunk of money, even if it's $50, $100, $200, I would dollar cost average, which means consistently put that money in. Yeah, some J-Ma says the people who bought the pizza, yeah, that pizza cost $1 billion, $1 billion because they paid 10,000 Bitcoin for the pizza.
Wow.
And back then the Bitcoin was like, whatever, pennies. And so 10,000 Bitcoin was the cost of a pizza. Now 10,000 Bitcoin is $1 billion. And so that person spent $1 billion today on a pizza back then. That's my point. That was only 16 years ago. We will in 16 more years see Bitcoin at 10 or 20 million dollars a Bitcoin, and you will say, "Holy shit! I wish I had more Bitcoin." And so so that's my point. You can use IBIT and MSTR combination 80-20 flip flop depending on your risk tolerance, or you get Coinbase or any of the other exchanges, Kraken, Binance, etc. You go do your research and figure out which one you want to do because they're different jurisdictions, different countries. And so Coinbase is like the big mama. So like that's the one that you probably want to go with because it's like the 800-pound gorilla. It's like the most regulated, the biggest. However, that also means it's probably got the grip around the balls of like the government and stuff because it's the biggest. So it's like also comes with its own risks. So then you could leave it on Coinbase, but most people in the Bitcoin space and crypto space would be like, that's dangerous. It's a custodian. It's like leaving your money in the bank. And since we're hardcore Bitcoiners, the whole point of this is fuck the system and the custodians like the governments and the banks and the exchanges like Coinbase. Get our Bitcoin in self-custody. So that's when you'd have to go watch some YouTube videos or hire a company like Unchained Capital or Swan. And there's a bunch of other ones out there. Or the institutional grade support can help you in self-custodying your Bitcoin, which is transferring the Bitcoin off the exchange to a device. And you're not actually transferring it off the blockchain. It always stays on the blockchain. You're just changing the address of who has control over it. And right now, if it's on Coinbase, Coinbase has control over it. Just like if your money is in Wells Fargo, do you have control or does Wells Fargo? Wells Fargo. It literally says when you sign a bank account that the money you're putting in the bank is no longer yours and that the bank can convert your money into stock in their company without telling you.
Wow.
So in the event of a bank run or a bank collapse, where their stock starts collapsing, they can buy their own stock back with deposits made by customers like you and me, and they can buy their own stock back to lift the price of the stock back up. So most people don't realize that your money in the bank is not yours. Not to mention the government can just print it. So it's really, truly not yours. It's monopoly money that's not yours. And so, it's like, even if I custody my cash, the government can just print it into oblivion and make it worthless, like Argentina, Venezuela, Turkey, and many other countries out there who just abuse their money printer, like America is now doing. And we're the world reserve currency. We're the number one currency in the world, and our government just prints it and abuses it. So everybody's fucked if you don't have the best assets. And so, yeah, J Ma says she has a personal experience behind that. There's altcoins that I can recommend. But again, not financial advice, entertainment, education purposes only. These are all speculative, like venture capital, where you can make a ton of money and you can lose all of it. It's like gambling with some strategy. The strategy being, I do due diligence and research on the team, the dev team, the leadership team, the management team, the product, the vision, etc., in hopes that if I invest my capital into it at the earliest possible stage before it becomes consensus that this is the next Facebook, the next Google, the next Amazon, and I get in early enough and I take the biggest risk possible before anyone else really believes in the company, the vision, the team, etc., then I have a chance of having a potential unicorn, which is really fast growing, asymmetrical, 100x, 1000x, 10,000x, like the first investors in Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Apple, you name it. But sometimes it takes 10 to 20 years before you find that out. I'm invested in a venture capital fund with a billionaire, and I'm invested in a lot of great, amazing companies through that fund. However, regular people don't get access to those things. So you have to go and do your own version of venture capital, like betting on crypto, altcoins, and meme coins. I do that too because I'm a degenerate and I like to have fun and I like to gamble. I like to gamble. And I'm able to have enough discretionary income that I could go and play around with some money, and it's not going to affect my wife and my daughter and my lifestyle and my family. And I never mess with the big mama of the big pile of Bitcoin. I just play around with a little bit of other stuff. And my little bit might be a lot to some people because I'm trying to see if I can turn a few $100,000 into a few million or tens of millions. And so, oh yeah, I just see what you're saying here, J-Ma. But yeah, so here's some of the ones that I'd recommend that I'm in. Again, not financial advice, entertainment purposes only. The meme coins that I believe in and have a lot of money in, it was SPX. SPX, you can buy it on Phantom Wallet, which is basically the Solana network. SPX, I think it's SPS 6900, but the ticker is just SPX. Then Giga, Giga, GigaChad, you can buy that on Coinbase or on Phantom Wallet. And then the next one is, she says, how about meme coins? These are the ones I'm talking about. These are like the highest risk possible, but that means higher risk, higher reward. And either way, you could lose all your money on all of them. So why not put it on the one that could go up the highest? So SPX, Giga, and Retardio. Those are the three that I'm in. And then altcoins, Sui and Solana. Those are the two that I'm in now. I was in like 100, but I ended up converting all of them into Sui and Solana because that's where the narrative goes. And that was a mistake I made the last previous cycles, was not following the narratives, which means what is everybody talking about? Where's all the money flowing? And all the money's flowing into AI, and all the money's flowing into Solana. And what's the next Ethereum? Solana. What's the next Solana? Sui. And so you kind of want to follow that like trend. Like, what's the next Facebook? What's the next Google? What's the next ChatGPT? Somebody said that I had $20 J-Ma in SPX and sold it. Do what you want. It's your money. Take your own risks. This is just for entertainment purposes, but I'm invested in SPX, Giga, and Retardio as my primary meme coin holdings. I have 6 figures in that, so it's a good chunk of money. So if I'm right, it could be just ridiculous. And then I have a pretty big bag of Solana and Sui as my altcoins. Again, I was in 100 altcoins, but and I lost for selling some of them, but I made up for selling others, and I tax harvested some losses. But nonetheless, all of this is just to make a profit, to buy more Bitcoin. So like if I turn $100,000 on SPX or Giga into $1 million, I'm going to take the $1 million, I'm going to pay my long-term capital gains tax, and then I'm going to roll all of that into Bitcoin, because the ultimate goal here is to just accumulate more Bitcoin. And so a proxy would be MSTR stock or IBIT as a way to buy it via stock versus crypto. And so you theoretically get exposure to the growth of Bitcoin through IBIT or MSTR, as I explained earlier. But the ultimate goal of buying any of this stuff is just to get more Bitcoin, period, end of story. That's it. Accumulate Bitcoin, save it. And then eventually when the price goes up, but shouldn't you sell it to buy stuff? You could, but you could just borrow against it and take a loan. And that's what rich people do, is they don't sell their assets. Because if you sell your asset, you have to pay gains. You have to pay tax, you have to pay capital gains, short-term, long-term. And so rich people typically never sell their assets. They borrow against them with loans, and the real estate will typically appreciate at the same rate or faster than the cost of the capital. So for example, if I get a $10 million Bitcoin, like I have $10 million in Bitcoin, I can go get a 30% loan to value. So I get $3 million in cash at 7% over 20 years. And I know that in 20 years, my $10 million in Bitcoin will be $1 billion in Bitcoin. And so I'll make $990 million in Bitcoin because it'll go up 100x in 20 years. And my $500,000 loan, or I'm sorry, my $3 million loan times 7% over 20 years. If I just pay the minimum monthly payment, I don't know exactly what it would be, but let's just say it'll be $9 million, right? So $3 million at 7% interest rate paid off over 20 years. Let's say at the end of the 20 years, I owe $9 million. So I started with $3 million, but the interest accumulated over 20 years makes it $9 million. But my $10 million Bitcoin went to $1 billion, and I made $990 million. And that was off of the $3 million that went to $9 million. So it's like my asset went up way more versus if I sold $3 million in Bitcoin, I would have had to pay capital gains tax, and then I'm out. I lost the Bitcoin, and now I have less Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin still went up, but I slowly lose it when I sell it, and eventually you're left with nothing. Which is why selling makes your generational wealth go down. Holding and taking a loan makes it go up, because I know one thing's for certain: their government's always going to print money, and banks are always going to give loans. And if the government's always going to print money, then the loans that I get in cash get devalued over time. And if I take the money that I get and I buy an asset that goes up faster than the interest on the devalued dollar I got a loan against, ta-da, it's called arbitrage, wealth building arbitrage. And now I'm going to get wealthy. I'm going to get disproportionately wealthy, and it starts to compound. Because next 10 years, when I have $200 million, I can go get a loan. And then in 10 more years, I have $400 million, and I can go get a loan against that. And then in 10 more years, I have $600 million, and I can get a loan against that. And every time I can get a smaller loan, because it's such a fucking big number, that I go, how much money do I need, Jay? And then I just take a 5% loan, and then I pay it off from my own stash if I need to. Or here's what some people do. They take a loan to pay off their loan, which is what the government does. And so now I just take a loan. So if I took a 5% loan against my Bitcoin, I can just take another 5% loan to pay off the other 5% loan. And I can just keep doing this. So I never sell the asset. The asset just keeps going up in value. And I just keep taking out loans against it to pay off the previous loan. And this is what rich people do most of the time with their assets. They never need to sell. They just keep accumulating more assets that go up in value more than the interest rate, because the dollar goes down because the government prints it, and banks always give loans against a devaluating currency with a fixed interest rate of, whatever the interest is at the time. And right now it's about 7%. I know, because I just did this. So there you go. So that's kind of I got to jump here in just a minute. We went for 2 hours, but dude, that's insane, it. I mean, that's the game. Like, that's how you get wealthy. So you have to work your ass off, live poor, take your cash, invest it into assets like Bitcoin. Then as Bitcoin accumulates, you build your wealth, and then you take loans against your Bitcoin to cover your lifestyle. And then the loan is going to go down in dollar terms, because the government has to devalue the dollar to basically pay it off. So if you knew you owed $37 trillion in debt, you want to have low interest rates, print more money, refinance the debt at a lower interest rate with a cheaper dollar, and then pump asset prices simultaneously. And then rich people get richer and poor people get poorer. And it's an unfortunate cycle of life, but it's just a reflection of a lack of education in society. And the ironic thing is, the government runs the states that feeds the state curriculum to us as citizens. And so it's just evident that the government doesn't want us to be aware of this. They don't want us to read books like The Creature from Jekyll Island. They don't want us to escape the financial rat race that they themselves have put us in. And so that's why I say this is actually the most important thing ever to talk about in business, in sales, in marketing, because this is the root of everything. So you can get a loan against your crypto from a dozen different companies out there. There's Unchained and Swan, but like there's companies that will just give you a loan. Like Unchained and Swan do way more than just loans. Like they'll do multi-sig, institutional grade custody. So like they'll do inheritance planning, IRAs, they'll do everything. And then obviously they do loans. But there's a place called like Ledend, and they just do straight up loans. Just type in where to get loans on crypto and it'll come up with like a ton. And some of them are like, we've done $17 billion just this month. And you're like, holy shit, that's a big one. And then do some research and some reviews. But there's a ton of great ones out there. It's super popular. My recommendation is don't do more than 20% loan to value. Just in case the fluctuation of Bitcoin somehow gets volatile. Even though I think our volatility index is getting smaller and smaller, meaning that the price is going to fluctuate less to the downside because rich people are buying it and they never need to sell outside of market manipulation and the occasional black swan, which seems to be pretty frequent nowadays. I think overall, a 20% loan to value is really safe, meaning if you have $1 million in Bitcoin, you'll take $200,000 in cash as a loan. And there's a very unlikely chance that Bitcoin will ever drop below the liquidation level, which means that you would get liquidated and get fucked and lose everything. And so that's why when you do like a 60% loan to value, if Bitcoin were to fall from $1 million down to 600,000, you would be liquidated because of the margin. Just like in your house, you could go upside down on your house, which is why the bank likes a 10, 20, 30% down payment, because they know real estate's not going to fluctuate that much. But Bitcoin historically does fluctuate. And so, yeah, I see J-Ma's loving this. So I'll check the comments for more love for people.
She's a math professor for over 20 years. She just retired and doing some marketing, online marketing. Nice job. That's why she's loving this. Nice okay. I need to let you go. You have done an incredible job of just sharing so much wisdom and insight. And I think your mission is very clear that you need to send this gospel because God knows that nobody's teaching this the way that you are. And definitely the education systems and institutions has not taught me one iota of this whatsoever, which is why I'm just like it's crazy, mind blown. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, Mark, who is also a mentor of mine with Offer Publishing. Brother. We're going to put some links down to join and to work with Mark with Offer Publisher with his partner, Josh Gavin, which is a partner, the publishing offer that I'm a part of to help influencers and celebrities monetize their offers. From paintball to profits, we have Mark Lack, and we're going to help you to sell more so that you can give more. Again, Mark, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and we'll talk to you soon, and we'll keep this discussion going.
Thanks, brother.